we will get to it.
Okay, the message of Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat, celebrated throughout the Jewish world on the 15th day of Shvat, has an interesting history. It represents a symbolic tie to the land of Israel, where it is the season of nature's rebirth. In our North American climate, it's still midwinter. However, celebrating this spring festival, we were able to lift our spirits. Just one. Sorry. We are able to lift our spirits and realize that spring is just around the corner. There are many references to planting in the Bible, and the Pentateuch lists many rules regarding planting, pruning, and the harvesting of the fruit of the trees and the produce of the fields. The importance of trees is indicated in Deuteronomy 20:19-20, where it is written, when in your war against a city, you have to besiege it a long time in order to capture it. You must not destroy its trees. You may eat of them, but you must not cut them down. Trees have always been dominant creative force in the rebuilding and development of the land of Israel. Not only have they served the purpose of beautification, shade, and reclamation, but they have rendered nourishment and vitality to both the land and the people. But there's another lesson to be learned from Tu B'Shvat, taught in the familiar Talmudic story of the Emperor of Hadrian, who met an old Jew planting a carob tree, which does not attain maturity for 70 years. Wow. The emperor said, by the time your tree bears fruit, you will be long dead. The old man replied, yes, but my father planted a tree whose fruits I have enjoyed, so I will plant it for my children. As we have been nourished and strengthened by the fruits of the trees planted by those who came before us, so too must we plant the seeds and saplings for our children and grandchildren. As the tradition and ritual is that we carry out are rooted in rich past spanning over 5,000 years, so is the future of Judaism dependent on our performance of the mitzvot today. And this was by Phyllis Brody, St. Paul, Minnesota.
Very nice.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so now we will call on Anna to
Okay,
introduce.
one minute. Okay, if you're not muted now, could you please mute yourselves? And
yeah. Okay. Can I, Donna Rotman? Yes, thanks. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate the support. I want to tell you about Lee Mass and Malini Hall. Lee is a registered physiotherapist with clinical experience in hospital, government, manufacturing, and for the past 15 years, she's been practicing in the home care and community setting. Lee also runs a small private practice that provides clinical treatment to clients in their homes, as well as providing educational programs to various health professionals and support personnel. Lee believes that physiotherapy has an important role to play in maximizing people's function to live safely and independently in their community for as long as they wish or are able to. Malini is a registered occupational therapist and has practiced in various settings such as mental health facilities, general hospitals, spinal cord rehab, and home care. Her focus has been working with adults and seniors with complex medical conditions and in a variety of social environments. She now works part-time at South Lake Hospital on the cancer and palliative care units. Outside the hospital, she continues her private practice, working with people in their homes to improve their safety and functioning, as well as assessing and prescribing equipment such as custom wheelchair and seating needs. She also teaches healthcare providers communication strategies to support better health outcomes and patient-focused care. Lee and Malini met many years ago while working together at a spinal cord rehabilitation facility. They subsequently started an OT and PT, occupational therapy and physiotherapy service for a home care agency in York Region, where they also worked as community therapists. They continue to work together, providing various educational opportunities and maintain a long friendship with shared interests, such as golfing and a book club. So welcome to Lee and Malini. We're really looking forward to your presentation tonight.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. That was a lovely introduction. One thing Anna did miss is that I've known Anna for a number of years because I grew up on the same street, and her daughter Catherine and I went to school together. So we just recently got in touch with each other again, and that was very nice, and I've really enjoyed that. So thank you all for inviting Malini and I. We're very excited to be able to give this talk, and we hope that it provides some challenging learning opportunities for everybody participating. So what I'd like to do is just to start a slide presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. And so I'm Lee, I'm the physiotherapist, and Malini will be following up after me. Let's just get this presentation. So we've named this talk, How to Maintain Safety While Maximizing Function as We Age. We just wanted to give a little disclaimer before we get started that basically we want you to remember that this information is provided for training and is general in nature. So it's not always appropriate for every individual in every situation and circumstance. Therefore, it's critical to consult with a healthcare professional who can offer personalized recommendations and guidance tailored to your specific circumstances. So this is general information. I hope it's helpful for you, but if you have some certain needs, we'll talk a little bit at the end as to where you can get some support. So the agenda is going to look like this. We're going to start talking about what happens as we age. And then from the physiotherapy point of view, why it's so important to exercise and keep moving. And that will lead right into Malini's topic of talking about maintaining safety in the home as we age. We have hopefully some time at the end for questions, but if you have questions throughout, you can certainly raise a hand and we can try to answer it then or save them to the end. So with that, let's just talk about the stages of human development. We've all been through some stages, and we all know that humans go through stages and certain things happen at those stages, from infancy to childhood to a young adulthood. And as we age, age-related changes will happen for all of us. And we're going to be talking a little bit about seniors or those 65 and older. And the changes that I'm going to talk about are really normal changes, okay? They're not specifically disease process. You think about things like what happens as we age. We see more wrinkles on our skin, less elastic in our skin. Our hair becomes drier, perhaps gray. Our nails become thicker. As far as the sensory systems are concerned, what happens in the sensory system is that most sensations need more information to give you the same feelings and vision and hearing. So for example, visual problems, you know, we hit middle age and everybody needs reading glasses. As we age, our hearing changes. So we don't hear high frequency as much. Our taste buds aren't the same. We have less taste buds. And so food doesn't always taste the same. Things like smell we need more input to smell things. This can become a safety issue for things like smelling fire. So those are some of the sensation things. When we take a look at movement, the things that change in our musculoskeletal system include our muscles become weaker. We actually lose 20 to 30% of our strength. We'll lose bone mass, and our muscles aren't as elastic as they were when we were younger. From the circulatory system, our heart may get arrhythmias and not beat the same. There will be a decline in how much blood is pumped out of the heart, because the heart is a muscle and it's weaker. As far as the respiratory system goes, the lungs are less elastic, and so we don't have as much oxygen exchange because we can't force out all of our breath that we've taken in. The last two systems that I think about are the digestive system, and there is a slowing of the digestive system. And we talked already about decrease in taste buds, so food doesn't taste as much, but there's actually a reduction in the size of the stomach. And lastly, urinary problems. There's not as much blood flow to the kidney system, and we have a declining bladder capacity, so that sometimes we have some urgency or frequency that can be very disconcerting. So we think about all those physical changes as we age, okay? So as we grow older, there are many physical changes that occur in all parts of the body. And sometimes these physical changes are affected by things like our lifestyle, inactivity, poor nutrition. And sometimes some of our behaviors can lead to acute and chronic disease. It's important to remember that the development of chronic disease is not a normal process, okay, of aging. It comes from a combination of different things. It comes from maybe our lifestyle, maybe our genetic background. All those types of things will play a part in achieving disease. So as we age, there's changes. If we have diseases on top of that, they may accentuate some of the changes. So this is what leads us to remember thinking about why is physical activity so important for our well-being, okay? And I did talk a little bit about the muscles, the bones, that sort of thing. So muscles, joints, connective tissue, bones, they all make up our movement and our stability. And that's controlled by our sensory system, our nervous system. So we have a number of different systems working together that are built for movement. And this is one of the reasons why we need to keep moving. Now, some of you may have heard this little quote down here at the bottom by James Levine, who said, "Sitting is the new smoking." Okay. Some of you may remember back in the 1960s, smoking was bad. And then we learned it was really bad, and it could lead to the aging process. It could lead to disease processes. And thankfully, most people aren't smoking now. But lifestyles have changed, and we're not as active as we were before. Think about perhaps your grandparents, your parents. They had to I remember my mother chasing the washing machine around the basement floor. It was a Ringer washing machine, you know, and so there was a lot more physical activity. And now, you know, we have a lot of ease and convenience. I think I'm pretty active as a physiotherapist, but I do a lot of charting, and that involves sitting. So there can be a lot of sitting in our days. How are we going to manage to make sure that we maximize our physical activity? So we're looking at it in two sections. We're looking on the right-hand side, you see any movement that's done in your daily life. It could be some housework. It could be walking to do an errand. It could be some gardening, dancing, anything like that. But we also have physical activities that can be on the other side of the grouping, and that is therapeutic exercise. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the therapeutic exercise that we need to do to maintain things as much as possible. When Anna and I were talking about what the group might want to hear, some of you had mentioned to her, well, why am I supposed to do the exercises that I'm supposed to do? And that may fall into the difference between aerobic exercises, strengthening exercises, balance, and flexibility. So to touch on that, I wanted to go to the Canada fitness guidelines. And the Canadian fitness guidelines are for all different age groups. This particular one is for those adults 65 and older. But the interesting thing is, even the adults from 21 to 65 have virtually the same information with the exception of balance. So let's go through and see what we need to be doing. So the first thing it says is to achieve health benefits and improve functional abilities, adults aged 65 and older should accumulate at least 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity aerobic activities per week in bouts of 10 minutes or more. So let's unpack that. What's 150 minutes? Wow, that's 2.5 hours. Okay, so 2.5 hours over a week, that could be 30 minutes in 5 days. It could be 22 minutes each day. And the important thing is it has to be in a bouts of 10 minutes. If you only do 5 minutes and stop, then we haven't worked it up enough. Okay. The next thing is, how do you know what's a moderate to vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity? Okay. So moderate intensity would be an activity that causes older adults to sweat a little and breathe a little harder. Whereas, and that might be something like a brisk walk or a bicycle ride, something like that. Whereas vigorous intensity aerobic activities for the older would be sweating and out of breath. Okay, that might be something like cross-country skiing, swimming, okay, just notching it up a little bit. If you go to the next one down after the aerobics, it says it's also beneficial to add muscle and bone strengthening activities using 2 major muscle groups at least twice per week. And then thirdly, those with poor mobility should perform physical activities to enhance balance and prevent falls. So what does that all look like? Okay. I want you to think as we're talking here, what your activities are like and how much you're doing in each category, and are you making a dent in the recommendations? So endurance or aerobic exercises here on the left, okay, are the ones that we said 150 minutes per day. And you can see this is a sort of an aerobic little exercise program happening. The next one is strengthening. What do you do for strengthening? Okay. Things could be included like weights or machines at the gym. In this picture, you see the gentleman pulling bands. These are elastic bands that cause strengthening. Okay. For activities of daily living sort of thing, carrying your groceries, that's working with weights, lifting, digging in the garden, those sorts of things. And then here is the balance routine. How do we affect balance? Okay. I know some of you may have already seen a therapist in your home and talked about balance exercises. So some balance exercises include going from sitting to standing, or standing on one leg, or leg lifts, that sort of thing. So there are a number of different balance exercises specific to that. And then lastly, we talk about, it wasn't in the Canadian guidelines, but I wanted to add it because I think it's very important as we age, is a stretching or flexibility program. When I do this, you kind of think of maybe yoga, something like that. So, you know, I haven't yet reached 65. However, I'm dangerously close. As I told you, Anna's daughter, Catherine, and I went to school together. So I'm 63. And I thought, okay, let's see what I've done. Okay. And we think about the aerobic. I try to take my geriatric dog out for a walk every day, but she has arthritis and she can't go too far. So that's good for me too. And we go about 20 minutes. So she does pull, so it's a bit of an aerobic exercise for me, but it's not really enough, just the walking of the dog. And when I looked at it, I'm lacking some strengthening. Okay. I don't think I'm lacking the balance because as a physiotherapist, I do a lot of training with my clients about balance training, and I go through the exercises almost every day with those. And I'm definitely needing more flexibility because I can't touch my toes and, you know, those sorts of things. So that flexibility is missing. So my husband and I have decided to take up pickleball once a week. So that's going to help with my aerobic. And I've signed up for a Piloga class this once a week. And that's coming together of both Pilates and yoga. So that's hopefully going to fill in some of the strengthening. So I just wanted you to think back and go through that in your own mind and think, how might you manage or change something around to help with your fitness levels? Noreen, you have a question.
A suggestion. I'm disappointed that and not very many people mention Tai Chi.
Tai Chi, beautiful. Thank you. It was right on my
I
balance
do
exercise.
2 90-minute classes of Tai Chi every week, and I've done it for 25 years.
Noreen, that is fantastic.
So
Tai Chi is actually an excellent exercise, especially as we age, because it has a high balance control, but it also does certain Tai Chi's movements also do strengthening. So that's a great class that you meant. And I'm sorry, I did mention it. It was written down in my it's also a good flexibility one
good
too.
for your brain.
There you go. Melina's going to talk about her brain a little bit later.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. So just in summary, before I pass it over to Melini, the physical benefits of mobility are listed here. You can see them yourself. It promotes musculoskeletal strength and maintains muscle mass, muscle tone, and overall fitness. Our moving will help improve circulation and breathing. The more fit you are, it's very linked in research to the resistance to illness and infection. Okay. One of my favorites is it eliminates constipation. So keep moving. It allows a person to keep in practice with walking and other movements, reducing the risk of falls, and can reduce any secondary effects from sedentary lifestyle. So with that, I'm going to pass this over to my friend and colleague, Melini.
Okay, thank you so much, Lee, and good evening, everyone. I would now like to turn your attention to functioning safely at home from an occupational therapy perspective. I would like to take some time to describe the role of occupational therapy and then review with you a home safety assessment and consideration to minimize falls at home. And I thought we could also take a few moments to look at equipment to help support daily living within the home environment. I'd also like to briefly touch on cognition. If I had more time, I think I could spend an entire couple of hours just doing cognition and looking at some strategies to support brain health. And then finally, we would like to offer you some resources so that you can maintain your safe functioning at home. So let's then turn our focus to occupational therapy. From just a show of hands, can I just see who is familiar with occupational therapy or has heard of what it might be? Okay, so there's a few of you. I wanted to spend a little bit of time just describing it because it's not as common as physical therapy. So occupational therapy or therapist is a healthcare professional concerned with promoting health and well-being through occupation. And that's why it's called occupational therapy, because occupation is defined as everything that you do in the course of everyday life. So as an occupational therapist, my role or goal is to enable people to participate in occupations that give them meaning and purpose. So for example, if you've had a stroke and you've lost functioning of your dominant side, and you no longer have the movement or the fine motor control to do some of your daily activities, and if your goal is to feed yourself again, and that's the occupation that's of interest to you, then my job as an occupational therapist is to work on improving your range of motion, the strength, and the fine motor so that I can retrain you on how to feed yourself again. And that may involve as well looking at splinting or adaptive devices to promote that activity or occupation. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we do as occupational therapists. Like many professions and professionals, there are various models and theories that guide our practice. The one I chose to focus on this evening is called the Person, Environment, and Occupation Model. And the reason I chose this model is because it describes what occupational therapists do, and it also has a very holistic approach when we're working with somebody in their daily goals. This model also has, and it shows the interaction over a lifespan. So it considers changing as we age and grow. So looking at this model, I wanted to introduce you to the home safety assessment, which is typically what I would do in someone's home. When we're looking at the home safety model, it looks at the person, the environment, and the occupation through this lens. So I'm going to walk you through each component in the lens of the home safety assessment. So when we're looking at intrinsic factors of a home safety assessment, it's really about the person. It's about the characteristics that make up the person. So it's your personality, your cultural background, and your spiritual beliefs that make you who you are and allow you to function in the way that you do, the various roles that you play in your life. But it also has to do with a clinical assessment of the person. So Lee had mentioned earlier, things like the physical and sensory motor changes that occur as we age, such as our balance changes due to decreased reflexes and coordination, changes in hearing and vision, but also assessing cognitive changes, such as changes in your judgment, in your insight, in your memory, in your attention. It also takes into account the changes due to medical diagnoses and conditions, and whether your condition is progressive or not. That's really going to affect your functioning over time. So it's very important that be considered and looked at. The home safety assessment also, when you're looking at the person, is looking at your history of falls, your fear of falling, the type of medications you take, and the effects of those medications, all of which contribute to your risk of falls. So understanding the whole person now and anticipating future changes based on your clinical assessment is really going to help in making the best recommendation going forward. When we look at the extrinsic factors of the home safety assessment, so on the next slide, this is about the environment. And the environment includes both the physical aspects of the home, both indoor and out, but also the social and the economic environment. So clearly in this picture, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek. This is the inside of a home that's very unkempt. And certainly you can easily point out a number of hazards, from the top of the picture of somebody walking down the stairs with items stored on the steps, the lack of a rail, scattered rugs, loose cords, and a cigarette on the table unattended to. There's multiple things happening in this environment. And certainly we want to minimize clutter, secure rugs, cords, and wires, but also need to make some consideration towards lighting, the effects of pets to our safety, and even uneven surfaces. The other aspects of the larger environment impact is also things like your social environment. So supports from family and friends can certainly either hinder or work to your advantage in terms of your functioning at home. Certainly your access to services such as, say, cleaning service or a meal service, and sometimes our place of residence or institution may dictate what modifications or devices, if any, can be made in your home. And lastly, part of the environment is also the economic environment, and whether you have the finances to make the modifications and changes, and also from a social funding perspective, whether there are government subsidies or coverage for items that you may require in your home. So aging in place does require some planning, and it may be necessary to make modifications and changes. I would like to point out 3 most common places in the home where falls tend to occur. And in the next slide, you can see that these 3 areas are the bathroom, the kitchen, and the stairs. So just knowing this can prompt you to look at how you are currently set up in these areas and how you may be accessing these spaces to increase your overall safety, as these are the more common areas where falls and injuries tend to occur. So, for example, in the bathroom, this is where we tend to have wet surfaces and smaller spaces. So consideration may be given to non-slip surfaces to secure mats, but also to secure a clear path from the bedroom to the bathroom, particularly for nighttime access. In the kitchen, certainly looking at how you access the space and if things are in comfortable reach, particularly for your everyday items such as pots and pans and glasses and plates. And lastly, on the stairs, looking at railings, I can't tell you how many homes I go into where there's absolutely no railings to hold on to. And certainly if there are railings, making sure that they're secure, and perhaps even considering adding another rail if that's required. The other thing I want to put out there is your footwear. I have seen so many falls in people's homes because of the footwear that they wear. And typically people tend to really like to wear these flip-flop types of shoes that do not secure the ankle. And many people end up tripping and falling over their own shoes while doing the stairs, resulting in a fracture or an injury. So please be mindful of the shoes you do wear in your home, particularly when accessing stairs. Okay, and then the last component of the home safety assessment is that occupation. So that's that meaningful activity that people are engaging in. So my job is to look at and analyze the activities that are important and meaningful for you to do and how you're currently performing them so that we can make some changes or recommendations to make things even better. So that could range from anything from cooking to maintaining a clean home, to gardening and doing your laundry. So whatever occupation or activity is going to be a very individual thing for each one of us. So there are many components to consider when optimizing safe functioning at home. And there's a real interplay between the person, the environment, and the occupation. These interactions, they interact with each other and ultimately influence the person's performance. So the home safety assessment, I must say, is a very individual assessment because we're all different. We all have personally different issues going on with us. Our supports and our environment is also very different, and certainly our homes are very different. So supporting our functioning at home are also a number of devices. So here's an example of a mobility device. There is so much out there in the market that really, again, having a therapist work with you to identify what is best for you in your current circumstance and also within your environment is key. We've got rollators to walkers to wheelchairs, and within the wheelchairs alone, there's power wheelchairs, there's scooters. There's a number of items that can really optimize your functioning at home. There is a perception out there that I have come across where many people feel that they do not want to use devices because I don't want to age myself. My job as an occupational therapist is to Perhaps reframe that thinking so that somebody may feel that I want to do the things that are important to me in a safe way. So there's many options again when we're looking at equipment, and again, very individual. And similarly, when we look at activities of daily living devices, they can range from grab bars to reachers to bed rails. There's a ton of items out there. What may work for you may not be appropriate for your neighbor. So again, a very individual approach to what may or may not work for you. And then I also wanted to just spend a bit of time looking at the brain and cognition, because as an occupational therapist, I do treat cognition and mental health, and knowing how our thinking and our brain health influences our daily function is very key. So just as we talked earlier about age-related changes that we experience physically, we too experience age-related cognitive changes, and typically they tend to be a bit of a slowness in thinking and speed, sustaining attention, holding information, and finding the correct words to support our thoughts. The abnormal cognitive changes as we age are things like the mild cognitive impairments and the dementias, which are more of the type or level of severity and not necessarily relating to the cause. So I think it's very important that we do spend some time talking a little bit about cognition and our brain health, because that little 2 to 3 pound computer that we all carry is controlling absolutely everything. So must pay homage to the brain. So there are many tenets of brain health out there, and I chose to focus on these 3. The first one being engaging and maintaining purposeful and meaningful activities. And we know from evidence that when we engage in meaningful activity, we're doing things that are important to us, that make us happier and healthier, and certainly has effect on us not only physically, but also in terms of how our brain is nourished and can then send appropriate neural signals to allow us to function. When we're engaging and maintaining in activities, all those activities that Lee mentioned earlier, not only are good for the body, but they actually increase the brain growth hormone factors. They increase oxygen to the brain, and they help modulate the brain's immune system. So what's good for the heart is good for the brain. So keep in mind that 115 minutes of moderate weekly activity that incorporates both the daily occupational types of activities, as well as those therapeutic activities such as Tai Chi and stretching, etc. Secondly, proper nutrition. Again, we could just spend a whole hour just talking on nutrition, but nutrition feeds the brain as well. Again, lots of evidence that says that nutrition helps decrease chronic diseases, and having a variety of foods in their natural state as possible is the key, as well as keeping in mind portion control and drinking enough water to stay hydrated, because that certainly impacts brain health. And lastly is the social interaction. Lots of information that says there's a clear link to well-being and quality of life. When we socialize, we're more likely to engage in activities, especially new activities, which challenge our brain, and studies have shown that doing so has a direct correlation to improving our memory. Sharing activities as we age with our peers is a great thing to do, and we actually form new neural connections and establish cognitive reserve to compensate for other areas of the brain that are experiencing age-related changes. In fact, in Britain, many physicians recommend social activity as a treatment plan. So I wanted to leave you with some helpful cognitive strategies to contribute to brain health. Many of these you're likely aware of. Some of them might be a good reminder, and perhaps 1 or 2 are a little bit new to you. So let's talk about managing stress. We all experience it. It's a natural process. It can be a good thing. It can force our thoughts and motivate us to action. However, chronic stress just does change the brain's activity. There's an increase in a hormone called cortisol, and it can have damaging effects to the brain. So many ways of managing stress. The 3 that I wanted to highlight was exercise. So much comes down to exercise. Exercise is sort of the panacea for so many things out there. The second one I wanted to leave you with is journal writing. I'm a true believer in journal writing to manage stress. What happens when we do journal writing is we translate our feelings into specific thoughts, creating emotional knowledge and regulation, which contributes to our sense of control. And that's the key, is once we achieve a sense of control, we can actually minimize the stress we experience. It's almost relieving our minds of the heaviness that we carry. And then the last strategy for stress management I wanted to leave you with is to think about incorporating gratitude in your daily life. There is so much research on the effects, positive effects of acknowledging gratitude. What gratitude actually does from a medical point of view is it stimulates the medial prefrontal cortex of our brain, which is the brain's reward circuit. And what that does is it makes us more resilient, it makes us more patient, and it has also shown to increase health indicators such as controlling blood pressure, diet, and depression. Secondly, getting organized. Getting organized is feeding the executive functioning of the brain, which helps us plan, organize, and make decisions. So, for example, having a place that you put everything and then putting it back in that place can really help you stay organized and give you that sense of control. Having one system. So if you're going to write notes, rather than having a notepad in the bedroom, a notepad in the kitchen, a notepad by the door, having one system can help you get your thoughts much more organized. Maintaining a routine. We are creatures of routine. Just even from childhood, we have a sense of developing a routine to our day-to-day activities. And what routine does is it provides us the structure and helps us stay focused and feel less scattered. And lastly, it's making those to-do lists and those reminder lists. I absolutely cannot function without making those to-do lists. I do have some clients, though, that are very hesitant to do this because they think that if they do this, they're not going to be working on their memory. What I suggest to them is make that list and then think about or try and remember what's on your list and then only refer to it if you need to. Closing the loop, the third strategy, is also known as finishing the loop. And this is really about planning your activity and breaking it down into smaller steps so that you're doing chunks at a time. And that chunking allows you to then focus and complete a smaller task and to do it from from beginning to end. And that's what closing the loop is all about. When we do that in smaller chunks, we are actually being more mindful, and we are it helps us focus on the activity and attend to the activity. There's another technique called the Pompadour method, which actually takes activities into 25-minute increments. So some of you may have heard that. And lastly, having a variety of hobbies is the key for good brain health. And this is why. But before I get into that, the activities or hobbies that you have should really be a combination of both the physical or the movement types of activities, but also things that sharpen your mind and involve the socialization so that the hobbies are active, fun, and mentally challenging. So for example, a combination of hobbies here could be golfing, walking, Tai Chi, cycling, as well as perhaps learning a new language, doing word games and puzzles, and reading, and even better, reading in a book club like Lee and I do, and as well as learning all the things that you've always wanted to learn, but perhaps doing it with a friend. So you're incorporating that socialization. Socialization doesn't have to be a large group. It can be a one-to-one as well. And so when we have this combination of activity, it gives you a contingency plan for your hobbies that are appropriate for conditions of the day. So today is a perfect example of that. If all your hobbies were geared for outdoor and in conditions like today, well, you'd be a little bit lost as to what you could do. So that combination gives you that contingency plan. There is some talk, I don't know where I read this, but they said you should try and have a combination of 5 to 7 hobbies in your repertoire. So when we do something pleasurable or rewarding, we're actually releasing a brain chemical called dopamine, which supports those neural connections I talked about earlier. Just as hearing aids and wearing glasses supports those neural connections, sending proper signals to our brain, so do doing these sort of hobbies and activities. Okay, and then lastly, Lee and I would like to leave you with some resources to support you.
Sorry, Malini, just before we do, I see Anna has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Anna. Yes, Anna?
Yes, yeah. I would like you to elaborate a little bit more about that 25 minutes. And I didn't catch the name of it.
Okay, yeah, I just actually heard this the other day on the news. It's called the Pompadour method. And the Pompadour is like the Italian word for tomato. And the fellow who came up with it had a timer in the shape of a tomato. And so that's why he called it the Pompadour method. And they found that if you chunk your activity in time increments, and in this case, it's 25 minutes, and try and do that activity from start to finish, you chunk it and you give it a time component, you're more likely to follow through and see it to completion.
But if you're not finished, what do you do?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's just a method that was just recently advertised, and I just thought that kind of was in line with closing the loop or finishing the loop.
I have a friend who does that in hours. She sets a timer for 60 minutes and she works on something for 60 minutes. And then when it goes off, she goes on to something else, whether it's finished or not. So I don't know if that's a good idea or not. And the other question I had, what did you say about the doctors in the United Kingdom? They
actually prescribe socialization as a form of treatment. They actually tell people, I think you should join a day program, or you should get out with a friend for coffee. They're actually doing that as part of their practice, because there's so much research that supports that this really helps brain health.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and then lastly, we just wanted to leave you with some resources so that you can too support your functioning at home. So the first one is the Home and Community Care Support Services. So this is the new name for what was traditionally called home care in Ontario, more recently called the LHIN. But essentially it's Home Care Services Ontario. It's government funded. And many people don't realize that you can access the service directly. Your doctor doesn't have to make that phone call. You can make that direct phone call and say, I would like an occupational therapist or a physical therapist or a personal support worker or a nurse to come to my home. The key words, though, when you're asking for OT or PT, occupational therapy or physical therapy, is to indicate concern about your safety or your falls risk. That's sort of the key way of getting that service at home. Because it is a government-funded service, there's often a wait list. So if you want to bypass that wait list and you have the ability to hire a therapist on your own, you can certainly go to the College of Occupational Therapists of Ontario or the College of Physical Therapists of Ontario website and find a therapist in your area that you could then have come out and work with you. And then lastly, there is a document that was recently put out by the Government of Ontario called Aging in Place document. You can look it online, and we can certainly pass this on to Anna to share with the rest of you. But it's quite an extensive document that has you consider, just has you look at things to consider when planning how to improve your life as you age, and what you can do to make things easier for you now so that you can take care of any changes as we continue to age and looking at your future. So yeah, we can definitely send that link to Anna if that's something you're interested in. Okay, so I'd like to just thank you so much for your patience and your time and your interest in this topic. And so at this point, we can open it up to some more questions or comments. Maybe we can go into a larger group view at this point.
Yes, that would be a good idea. Okay, don't be shy.
Yeah,
Please.
any questions or comments? Yes, committee chair.
Oh, committee, yes, committee chair. I just want to say that you ladies left me feeling pretty good because a lot of the things that you said, I already do. Like I go to the gym many days and I can't work out at home because I need the social part. And I have to say, I do my exercising properly, not just because if you just go to the gym, it doesn't work unless you do the work. Just going there doesn't help. It's not enough. Yeah. Anyways, and so I think you've left me feeling really good and I'm organized and a whole bunch of other things. I don't do everything right, but I do a few of them right. So thank you very much for making me feel so good.
Excellent. Well, good on you for doing everything that you're doing. And you know what? I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. Many of us are doing many of these wonderful things. And it's just finding that balance and also how to maintain it over time. I
Yes.
think Zoom
Oh,
users
and the other, can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
I have to apologize to Lee because I see that calling in an occupational therapist into your home as you age is a thing, but I think people always think of physiotherapist as somebody they go to after an injury, not as a preventative person, and I'm sorry about that.
Well, Ellen, I think you're right, that some people who need some aids and stuff, you think automatically about occupational therapy. But as Malini mentioned from the beginning, occupational therapy and physiotherapy work together. We have to maximize strength and balance and all those things to then line them up with the right aids if we haven't maximized everything completely.
And translating all that to function too.
Yeah.
You know, Zoom user, I'm so sorry. I don't know your name, but your hand is up.
Mary?
I have a question. Are you familiar with the classes that Circle of Care provides? And I'm wondering if you are, how closely they meet the various needs you talked about.
So I can speak to that. I'm very familiar with Circle of Care and their exercise programs. They've done a very good job. They're under the aspect of the community care center as well. And so there are other groups that also provide similar exercises. And they are very good because sometimes some of our clients may not be safe enough to stand on their own. And so going to an activity class, which is more focused on sitting, might be important. So they change it around quite a bit. I also was connected with a group out of Montreal, a Jewish society that provided a lot of online exercises for seniors as well as other group things. I don't know where that is right now, but it was also a very good thing that brought in a lot of Zoom meetings for activity. Miriam, do you know anything more about that?
I think maybe the Canadian Association of Retired People or Persons has Zoom exercises throughout the week.
Yeah, so CARP would have some. And the other place that you can look, as I know, for example, I live in Richmond Hill, so I know that Aurora has a online Zoom meeting that anybody can join in. It's run out of the city of Aurora, but wherever you live, like if you're in North York or something like that, there may be other things available. The other thing that is really good that I don't know if any of you have really got connected to is the library. The library has so many good programs offered that are free, and you can sign up from learning knowledge book clubs, uh, new language, fitness, all those sorts of things.
I just want to say that the Circle of Care, they have Zoom exercises. So although they do have it in person in different places, I prefer to do it on a Zoom, and I find it saves me my time, and I have most of the equipment I need.
Right. And is there a charge for that?
No.
No.
And they have different classes 5 days a week.
At different times.
Yeah.
So you can choose what you like, and they do record some of them so that if you couldn't catch it, you can find the one that's recorded that you want. So
did you mentioned that they have classes 5 days a week and it's on Zoom? Do they specify out what it's good for? Like if it's good for standing, balance, or strengthening, or aerobics, or stuff like that?
well, they usually would say bands and balls, or
Excellent.
You know,
Excellent.
they would give you an idea of what equipment you might want to use or have, and I find they're very good. And it started during the Zoom one started during COVID when it started. And so although some people like to have the social part, like they have it in our synagogue that started up again, they like the social part too. I've got enough social activity going on in my life, so I don't need the social part for the exercise too. So,
But
Ellen?
that's good, Anna, because a lot of people don't have as much socializing as you do. So good for you.
Yeah, I'm out every day. Sometimes I have to insist I stay home. Anybody else?
On that vein, we should put in a plug at Beth David. It's 1:15 till 2 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays in person. And it's stretching and balance mostly. And a good number of people that are on here tonight are participants.
Judy, isn't it Monday and Wednesday?
I meant Monday, you're right, Monday and Wednesday. The program here is Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you.
Okay, Noreen, unmute yourself.
Just wanted to thank you for mentioning Tai Chi more than once.
And Noreen, where do you do your Tai Chi?
Well, it started out as a Parks and Rec program until whoever manages Broadlands Community Center started harassing our teacher that he needed to be certified. But he didn't understand what certified meant and why it had to do with teaching Tai Chi, which he had taught for like 20 or 30 years. And so he said, I'm going to quit. I'm quitting. And we begged him. We rented space in a couple of libraries and paid the rent and offered him money, but he didn't want to, he wouldn't take any money from us. And so it's sort of private. I've just found a chapter of the Royal Canadian Legion that we're going to rent space from Thursday till the end of May. at which point we go back to Edwards Gardens. But Monday nights are on Zoom, and we have people that won't do the Zoom classes. We also have people from out of town, from Coburg and Oshawa, who Zoom in with the Wi-Fi at the Legion and whatever, and my house. And yeah, we're a small group. Most of us have done it for like 20, 25 years. Some of us have done it for 2 years, and everybody's welcome. And if you're interested, let me know.
Well, it's very good. Very
Yep.
good.
Yeah, I used to go, but my balance is so bad. I just gave it up because I can't stand.
Well,
Yeah.
Anna, there are some Tai Chi videos in the sitting position. You could look into that because there's still, you know, some benefits from Tai Chi from the sitting position, and even wheelchair users have been taught on that. So,
Where would I find those?
I don't know. I'm gonna Google around and see what I come up with because I do know that we've used it before in the sitting position, and it still has lots of benefits.
You can ask Greg and Linda.
Okay.
Yeah.
They would know.
Yeah, I know who
Former
they.
teachers, yes.
Well, if there's no more, anyone else have a question? Well, I just wanted to thank both of you, Lee and Malini. It was fantastic.
Thank you very much, Anna, for inviting us.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. And, you know, although we sometimes think we know everything, we don't. And sometimes when someone else says something, it jogs our memory. Oh, yes, I should be doing that. And I've forgotten about it. Or I was going to do it, but tomorrow, you know.
I
So,
saw a lot of people smile when Malini mentioned about having a place for everything and putting it back in its place.
yes, exactly. We know what we're supposed to do sometimes, and we don't always do it. But thank you very, very much for taking the time to come to this evening and talk to us. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome. Thank you.
Tororaba.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Malini and I can just leave. I don't know if you still have a meeting that's going on.
No, I think we're finished. At least.
So thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for coming. And yeah, this was really good. And maybe the shul will let me know where it's going to be. Like I did record it, so we'll see if they let me know where we can find it.
Okay, because some of our regular members are on vacation.
Yeah.
Our treasurer is on the high seas just now, so you would see the recording when she comes back to land. So
Okay, thanks so much. I really
Thank you.
appreciate
Good
it.
night.
Thank you.
Right.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Bye-bye.
good
Bye-bye.
night. Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. It's good to
Okay.
see everybody. Yes.
Yes. Hello, everybody who's still there.
Yeah, that's me. Time to go downstairs and see about my broken television.
All right, time to go. Time to go eat. I'm hungry.
Oh,
Oh, well,
time.
been there, done that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
you got to Florida, okay?
Yeah.
Good.
That's good. That's good.
Nice weather or
I
no?
thought I stopped
Uh,
the recording. Stop recording.
I
Yes.